Assalamu alaikum, shalom, guten tag. The events that unfolded last Thursday at Freie University were historical for all the right and wrong reasons. On that day, the leadership of the university, in a betrayal of the basic principles that academic institutions are meant to uphold, called the police to forcibly evict us from a peaceful occupation. The police began detaining students even before they announced the eviction. Approximately 20 of us were detained and are awaiting charges, including myself, who was thrown against the police van. By contrast, despite actually starting the disturbances, which as documented in video footage, and as witnessed by both university officials and police, and which included assaulting our members and tearing down posters, not a single pro-Israel counter-protester was detained. In fact, to add insult to injury, the counter-protesters were even allowed to remain behind following the eviction. In other words, the university effectively replaced pro-Palestinian students who had occupied the space with pro-Israel ones.
Shame on you!
The symbolism should not be lost on anyone. Naturally strengthened by a feeling of impunity, the harassment by the counter-protesters has since continued. Only yesterday, the same individuals followed our members while we attempted to hold a basic organizational meeting, and again called police despite being the ones pursuing us in an attempt to shut the meeting down. In other words, police presence on campus is becoming a regular occurrence. We are not only being harassed, but we are being reported to the police for being harassed. Rarely perhaps is the term gaslighting so appropriate. This is a calculated attempt to exhaust and deter our members by drowning them in vexatious legal complaints. But it will not succeed. We will not be deterred. The events of last Thursday vindicated our original decision to occupy. It revealed that the university was acting without good faith and pursued amateurish decision-making even from a neutral point of view. In a reckless decision of poor judgment that endangered student safety, the university initially asked us to allow the counter-protesters into the occupation and threatened eviction if we did not. Despite complying against our better judgment, the university deceitfully later carried out this threat anyway. The university's duplicity has also been evident within its media output. On the one hand, both the university and police admitted that there had been no reports of anti-Semitic incidents at the occupation. Yet the university still has attempted to justify the eviction by linking it to a policy of zero tolerance to an undefined anti-Semitism, likely one where criticism of Israel is defined as anti-Semitic. In trying to guilt-wash its history, the German state and its institutions have proven more defensive of Israel than even Israel itself. From the start of the assault, Israeli officials have declared the following: that Gaza would be turned, and I quote, into a city of tents with no buildings. That the emphasis of the offensive would be, and I quote, damage and not accuracy. That water and power would be cut as Gaza was inhabited by, and I quote, human animals. That Israel should, and I quote, blown up and flatten everything. And that Gaza should, and I quote, be erased. Revengeful and vengeful IDF is needed. One minister has also threatened to use nuclear weapons. Our academics know full well that in any other context, such statements would be seen as the type of rhetoric that has typically accompanied historical episodes of genocide. Those academics who still fail to speak up or take action engage in moral cowardice, prioritizing their livelihoods and their jobs over their vocational duty to speak the truth. Shame on them! Shame on them! Shame on them! A message to the media. In the last week, we've experienced firsthand the total disregard of the most basic principles of journalistic professionalism. We've seen media outlets that do not even bother to take quotes from both sides. We've seen others that promoted libelous claims without even a pretense of offering proof for their claims. Yet we say anti-Semitism is indeed on the rise here. We personally know of incidents of anti-Semitism that have targeted our friends. We stand together with our Jewish friends, with our Jewish brothers, with our Jewish sisters, body, spirit, and soul. But we do not do so to prove ourselves to anyone, or out of the vacuous pretense to posture to those who libel us and yet who weigh the value of human life differently. Let us be clear, we are no longer going to expend energy trying to prove the genuineness of our opposition to anti-Semitism to a media that itself should prove that it is not racist. This very same media that proclaims opposition to anti-Semitism is today promoting a divide and conquer policy that seeks to split the intercommunal solidarity necessary to combat it, to make us suspect one another, again, with the intention of showing that the German state and nation are the only trustworthy actors. If Germany really has learned from the mistakes of its past, it would not be swimming in the opposite direction of a practical unanimity of human rights groups, of most of the international community, including even other EU states such as Belgium, Ireland, Spain, and even France. The German states and German institutions are not trying to repair the past, no matter what they proclaim. They are in fact trying to escape responsibility for the consequences of that past by failing to recognize the multiple victimhoods which arose out of it. Let us emphasize this point again and again and very clearly. Germany does not only owe reparations to the Jewish people, it owes reparations to the Palestinian people as well. Sorry for taking long, by the way, I'm almost finished. The message being sent by the guilt washers is clear. Germany alone is exceptionally against anti-Semitism. Germany alone is the only fit judge. Germany, in opposing the exceptionalism of the Nazi era that saw the world unite against it in the past, is today exceptional once again, but of course in a different and supposedly progressive way. The sheer lack of self-awareness would be amusing if it were not so tragic, and if its consequences were not so disastrous. The space we claimed last week was fundamentally a plea for a basic human recognition of the atrocities being committed in Gaza. But it was also, as small as it may have been, an attempt to try and shake Germany awake, to force it to open its eyes to the blatant reality unfolding before our eyes, to force it out of the self-centered pathology of guilt, and to recognize the reality for what it is, rather than the alternative reality that sits better with certain selective consciences. Those who call out Israel's human rights abuses are often accused of unfairly singling out Israel. Yet amongst us are opponents of various regional dictatorships, including regimes that proclaim an opposition to Israel. It is shameful that we have been met with further repression in Germany, simply for exercising their democratic rights. Finally, the university claims our occupation is illegal. We believe that the university's support for Israeli occupation is illegal. From the start of the current round of the conflict, Freie University could have at least chosen to take a position of neutrality. Instead, it decided to take a clear political stance, declaring support for one side of the conflict. Seeing that they have now made their bed, we demand that the FU release a statement condemning Israel's violation of international law, including its continued refusal to abide by UN resolutions 194 and 242, and to call for a ceasefire. Thank you. الحرية لفلسطين. عاشت فلسطين حرة مستقلة ويسقط الاحتلال الإسرائيلي.